in the sports world. So, without further ado, I want to nominate whoever would like to step forward and speak first. Ladies first, they said. Okay, so Dr. Stephanie Bills.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for asking me to come share my story, a little bit about myself, and maybe just some thoughts about motivation. I am Dr. Stephanie Bills, and I've been in education for over 25 years, and I have been an advocate for Native Americans along with urban education in rural Oklahoma. And so my story is probably not unlike many of yours. I came from a broken home. I was not raised by my mother or my father. I was raised by my grandmother and my grandfather. We did have alcoholism in the home, and we didn't have a lot of money, but I knew that there was one thing that I needed to do, and that was to stay in school. And that's what my goal was, to find a way to play basketball at the college level. And so I really made my decision at a very young age that I was going to do whatever it took to play at the next level. Despite all of my family challenges, personal challenges, my schools were not good that I attended. They were not rigorous, and so I did the best I could. I did not have a high ACT score. I was roughly around a 15 when I came out of high school. And so don't let your ACT test determine the value of your education and what you're capable of doing. You are a product of your schools, and we know that there are challenges within your schools when it comes to rigor. So I always advocate to our students to not let your ACT determine how far you can go. As far as high school basketball, I was a shooter. I scored 40 points was my average in high school. I was not a passer, so I was probably one of those players that you probably didn't like to play with. But you know what? When you're focused and you have a goal, and I will say this from my experience today, we may preach play team basketball, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to be assertive when it comes to taking your shots and stepping out on the court. I'm not saying not be a team player, but sometimes being a team player requires you to put the ball in the hole. And I see this happen time and time again, coaches telling players to be a team player. So I really want to check you on whether or not you're doing that. Be all that you can be, and let scoring be a part of that, because that's how I got my looks. They didn't care that I couldn't play defense. They just wanted me to get out there and score. And so I did that very well, and that was my art. So find your skill set. So when I got to school, I went junior college. I went junior college. They call them community colleges now. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I played with kids my own age. One thing that my college coach did, and he believed in me, he said, my senior year, he said, I challenge you to go run track. And I'm like, basketball's my thing. I don't run track. And he said, it will put you in a position to be competitive at the next level. And I did what he asked me to do. So surround yourself with people and coaches that challenge you, but don't tear you down. And I did that. I did not know I was a track. I qualified in 5 events at the state level and was very competitive. Who knew? I didn't know. Nobody really pushed me until he asked me to do that. So I went on and ran high school, did very well. It really prepared me for my freshman year. So here's my thing. Raise your hand if you're a junior going to be a senior. I don't see very many hands, so we got a few. How many seniors do we have? Not that many. We got sophomores. Got some sophomores. Okay, so here's my challenge to you. If you are a junior going into your senior year, and this is a disservice to you, you are going to have the easiest year of your life because you're already done with your credits. So I would take advantage of that. If it's get a job or get a trainer or work out, don't let that silly senior year dictate how you're going to do in your freshman year, because what's going to happen your freshman year, it's going to be the hardest year of your life. You're balancing sports, you've got academics, the rigor's probably a lot more than what you're used to, and there is a very high percentage 50% of those that go to college flunk out their freshman year. And it's because we've created bad habits as a senior. So don't do that to yourself. Just because somebody's saying you don't have to be a certain place, don't let that limit you. Push yourself, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Surround yourself with the best people. You're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. So I went on and played junior college ball. Had a very good year my freshman year. I transitioned because I wasn't used to going up and down the court, but I did well my sophomore year. I became an all-region. I was recruited by Division I players. I made that pathway work for me. But at the end of the day, when I was recruited as a player coming out of the junior colleges, I opted not to go to D1. You know why? Because I wanted to be competitive. I knew that if I went D1, I would not be competitive. I had a realistic perspective of my talent. And I just wanted to stay in Oklahoma, and I wanted my family to watch me play, and I did that. I was very successful my junior year. My senior year, went on and completed my master's degree, and then got into teaching and coaching, and I coached for 5 years in high school. I coached at the college level, and I stayed in education. I continue to value what education has to offer. And I've been in the career tech system. I've been in the college level and the K-12 system. And if there's one thing I can leave you with, I went on and get my doctorate about 3 years ago because I'm an advocate for learning. So there is one book I would challenge you to read. There's several, but one in particular. And it's by Angela Duckworth, and she writes on the subject that nobody really can put their fingers on, and it's called grit. I always say, be gritty. And what grit is, it's that ability for a person to pull up their bootstraps no matter what the circumstances are, whether or not you have a tough family life, or maybe you have had injuries, that no matter what, you're going to suck it up and you're going to do it anyway. That's what grit is. So she wrote this book, and it's basically a research project on the Navy SEALs. Everybody knows what the Navy SEALs are. That's just a very rigorous program. Not very many get through. The success rate is very, very low. Like those that actually enter into the Navy SEALs and actually become a Navy SEAL, it's like really low percentage, like 10%. So she did a study on the Navy SEALs, and what is it that the 10% did that helped them get through? And it was this subject called grit. Be gritty. Every single one of them had some type of trauma or something to overcome. They had something to prove. They had a chip on their shoulder, and they did not take no for an answer. So I say that to say, no matter how tough you may have it, if you can see it as an opportunity to grow yourself and overcome, you have the ingredients to be a gritty person and to have grit. So don't let your circumstances dictate your future. Use it to your advantage. I could sit up here and say, woe is me, I didn't have a mom, I didn't have a dad, my ACT was low, we had alcoholism in the home, throw in some mental illness, we grew up on commodities. I could say that, or I could say all of that and much, much more made me who I am today. But you have to surround yourself with people that believe in you and see that you can do more than you think you can. So that's my challenge to you. Never stop learning, continue to grow, and don't get stuck in these old, difficult mindsets that says you cannot perform, because you can. The power of the mind is incredible. But a lot of times we let people dictate our future. So that's a little bit about myself. I know we're going to have time for questions and answers, but I just really want you to know that we are rooting for you. We are your cheerleaders. We know that you can do it. And all of us here at the panel, we know that you can be successful if you do a lot of the things that we've done and continue to do. And that's continue to grow your mind and your body. Thank you.
Next up, we have James Kelly. Most of you know him as the coach for Riverside High School, female basketball. He also runs a recruiting platform with over 1,000 college coaches, helping Native American athletes pursue their happiness at the next level. He also has a website which is completely free for Native American athletes to have their own profile to help get themselves recruited to get on that pathway. So without further ado, James Kelly.
I'll do the same. I'll tell a little bit about my backstory, whatever. I'm from Anadarko, Oklahoma. When I was about 8th grade, I started getting serious about basketball. My dad said, "Hey, do you want to play college ball?" I said, "Yes." From that decision, I didn't realize the choices that were going to happen after that. But I moved to Carnegie, Oklahoma. Played basketball there. We won a state championship, 29-0 senior year. Ended up playing NAIA ball at USAO, Chickasha for 2 years, and I transferred and played my last 2 years at Southeastern Oklahoma State. So I've got the college experience and things like that, and so that's what I share with my players. Is a lot of the stuff that as the coaches that I played for, all of them are in either the school's Hall of Fame or in the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. So the knowledge that I have that I went through, I take what worked and I try to fit it to what we have. And it's been working recently for the Lady Braves. I don't know if anybody's heard about us. If you haven't, you will. But what happened though is when I took over the girls program in 2014, it just started saying how I'm not going to be one of those coaches who moves from place to place where the talent's at. So I had to figure out what am I going to do to bring the talent to Riverside. So it ended up being getting my players signed to the college level. And it started out just being tribal colleges, but one of my players said, "Coach, I don't want to go to a tribal school. I want to go to a regular school." So I was like, well, that was a challenge for me because I only had mostly tribal schools. So I started out with, I had 30 college contacts at the time, and I just took the whole summer and I just reached out to everybody that I could reach out to, and I ended up at 600 at the end of the first summer. So I was like, well, it's easier than I thought. So anyway, it grew from those contacts, and I ended up where in the last 8 years, we've got 21 girls signed to college. That's even more than what, in Anadarko, I'm going to knock on you a little bit. Anadarko's been in state way more than we have, but they don't have near as many college athletes as Riverside is sending. That's not to knock anybody that's over there. It's just saying that the ability to do it is there if the desire is there. But from that, I was just helping my own kids, and then the boys started to, say, "Hey, we need some help." And the area team said, "Hey, we need some help." And then I started getting into national contacts where kids were saying, "Hey, I'd like to be helped get into college." So one Christmas break, I just started of course, y'all know social media is free, so I just came up with the name Native Student Athlete Prospects. I designed a logo and I put it all on Twitter, Facebook, and all that, and it's just grown from there. So now we have international kids that we are helping. I've helped kids come over from Africa and Europe. There's actually one who came from Senegal, who's at Community Christian right now, Norman. He's the #1 football recruit in the state of Oklahoma. He's got 8 Power 5 schools that he's picking from, and he actually came over here for basketball. So we have international contacts and things like that. But always my heart is where the natives are at. So I've always said that any native that says, hey, I want to get help going to college, I'm going to help them for free because it costs a lot of money to do what we do. It costs money for my website. It costs money to, we do live streaming to coaches. I have a coach group that has over 1,100 coaches and recruiters in it, but it costs me $25 a month just to keep the streaming, up and running. But when you guys see me out here broadcasting these games, I'm broadcasting those games directly to coaches in the coach group because it's an exclusive group and nobody else is allowed in it. And those coaches are watching games. Now, we can't always guarantee that they'll like your game, but you're going to get seen. And that's the only thing that we can really promise is that we're going to increase your chances. So shortly from that, what I want to say is you guys have to make sure that you're doing what you need to do before your opportunity to even get seen happens. So what I mean by that is the only way that a coach is going to like your game is if you're investing in yourself. What I mean by that is get in the gym and do work outside of your coach's required practice. If you're not going to do that, then you can forget it. Anybody can say, I want to go to college, but if you're not putting in extra work, then when it really comes down to that time in the game where you're really going to shine, you're not going to be ready for it. And so that's just the basketball part. The other part of investing in yourself obviously has to do with your grades and also the weight room. So, of course, girls are built different than boys, but we just had a showcase last week, and we had Pratt Community College come down looking at one of our boys, and our boys team actually, the first thing he said to one of our boys was, you need 15 pounds of muscle and grades. He didn't say nothing else to him. You know, he said, you got the skills, but if you don't get in the weight room and get your grades in, there ain't nothing he can do for him. So that's a lot of stuff that I come across, that I hear college coaches say, that I always try to tell the people that I help, you know, what are you doing to make yourself ready? So other than the weights and your grades, there's also a lot of stuff that you can do that as far as paperwork. For example, your FAFSA form or your federal student aid, which is Pell Grant, if you're not familiar with that needs to be done. If you feel like you're good enough to go to NAI or NCAA level basketball, then you have to have what they call the NCAA clearinghouse. That means you have to go on and you got to fill out paperwork so that they can make sure that you're still an amateur athlete. That has to be done. Then you have to have your transcripts ready to send if they're asking for your transcripts. Then your ACT has to be high enough to even get into the school that they're asking you to come to. So there's so much that you guys don't understand that goes into it, that has to happen before you even get the college coach contact. And the last part that I'll talk about, and I hope that you guys have questions for me afterward, because there's so much lack of education where recruiting is concerned that I can answer. But part of it has to do with us as natives, as a culture. And a lot of times as a culture, together and around each other, we're very out and social and loud. Everybody knows the powwow laugh and how it happens and all that other stuff, and how loud the ladies get when they're telling jokes. Hey, all that stuff. And the louder it is, the funnier it is, right? But just a minute ago, Doctor asked for participation and asked you guys to raise your hands if you're a sophomore, or if you're a junior and you're a senior, and almost nobody raised their hand. And that goes back to our culture too, where you guys have to live in two worlds. You have to live in the white man's world, and you got to live in our own world where it's comfortable. If you cannot operate in that, how are you going to go to a college where there isn't very many natives? 0.0005% of native or of NCAA athletes are native. That's how small of a percentage are there. So we know everybody in this gym is native. But if you wanted to go to a college in the NCAA level, you're not going to play with anybody who's native. I had my brother went and played down prep school in San Antonio, and they was asking him if we still lived in teepees and shot bows and arrows. He's like, what? You know, just stuff like that. Nobody's going to be able to identify with your culture. But that doesn't mean you can't live in it. Doesn't mean you can't live in that world. But you have to be ready to step into that. Also, is you guys have to learn how to speak to adults. I actually, literally, this past week, had a young lady who was a native who I helped and senior at a tournament. She only had 2 offers, and I got her 2 Division I offers from college coaches. Well, guess what? I just reached out this past week and said, Coach, how's it going? Is she going to come visit? He said, I don't know. She won't answer me. So she had two Division I looks and won't respond because of the same thing that you guys are doing. When people ask you questions, you guys are just sit there and you just like, yes, I don't talk to nobody. That's our culture where we understand that. As young people, you understand that. Most of the time, you guys are really quiet until you're by yourself. Well, in the other world that we have to live in, you got to be open and vocal. You have to be that way. Because if not, they always say the closed mouth don't get fed. So if you want to be and live in that world where 0.0005% of there's native athletes, you're not going to be down here. You got to open your mouth and talk. Be able to be out. Okay? So I come from the same culture where we didn't talk a lot, but then now I'm up here doing public speaking stuff. It's not a big deal to me, but I had to grow into that. Okay? You guys have to do the same thing. So when coaches, if you guys are lucky enough to be able to talk to a coach, you got to carry on a conversation with them because I know it's glamorized how people will chase you. Oh man, you're a good ball player. They're messaging you every day. It's really not like that. You guys have to message back. There's even times where I've had coaches say, you know what, coach, I like this player, but I don't want to hear from you. I want to hear from the player. And then if you don't understand how to run a conversation between you and an adult, they'll quit recruiting you because you don't know how to communicate. And it stops there. So there's so much more that goes into recruiting and making it to the college level than just being out here playing ball. That's the beginning of it. And then there's your paperwork, then there's your grades, then there's your work ethic. All of that comes into play. So make sure that I hope that you guys have questions for me afterwards because there is a ton of talent at these tournaments. And I mean a ton. That's college level talent. There's been times when I played on the college level and I took my teammates to Indian tournaments and they got wore out because of the talent that was at Indian tournaments. We actually had Mr. Basketball from Indiana came to one of our tournaments and he got lit up. And I mean lit up. But people don't see us. We only see each other. We got to get out of our culture and be able to walk into the worlds and go showcase our talents elsewhere. We have to be able to do that. We got to come out of ourselves to do that. We can still have our culture and do that. Okay? So that's all I have for now. I hope you guys have some questions for me later. And thank you for having me. I see a lot of you youth. I'm watching the audience and I'm watching you. Um, I continue to do this work on behalf of my late grandmother, Loretta James. She was a judge, and she helped with the Indian Child Welfare Act, which is a very integral part of keeping our people together. So when I speak about our families being raised by our family members, it's real. I know several people that have been adopted off the reservation and never grew up with their own people. And it's because of the Indian Child Welfare Act that our people are with their loved ones and we have our families intact to this day. So on behalf of my grandmother, I want to ask you youth to engage in this conversation. So for example, the girl in the red shirt directly probably talking to Alexa there. You know, I'm only asking for a small period of time in respect for our people here. They're talking on behalf of giving you guys something to look forward to. So this small amount of time to be off of your phone and this small amount of time to engage in publicity, it means a lot. Not to just me, but my grandmother that's watching from above and the work that's being continued today. So out of respect for your loved ones, for your grandmothers, and for the Indian Child Welfare Act that has kept our people together for many years now. On behalf of that, I just ask for your respect to engage and listen to what these people have to say. Because it's important. It's important to our history, and it's important to our future. So thank you. Next up, we have co-founder Brent Cobb with BigManSports.com.
imagine you guys all follow IndianSports.com. They showcase and highlight all of Native America's talent through all sports. I'm very honored to have him as a mentor, a friend, and supporter to here today. He can bring his family and his children here today. It means a lot. So without further ado, IndianSports.com.
Sean. Appreciate all the panelists so far. Great information, great resources. I hope you guys are taking in all the information that they have to share. Sorry, I won't stand by the speaker. Indian Sports was founded by myself, like you said. Me, I'm from Sapulpa, Oklahoma. Graduated there many years ago. And John Harjo here, who I'll introduce more later. He's the co-founder of Indian Sports, and just want to talk a little bit about what Indian Sports was founded, how we started it, and then talk a little bit about careers outside of sports. Because the ball stops. Eventually you're going to play high school ball, you're going to play college ball, and only 0.03% of Division I athletes go on to play NBA or professional ball. So, you can still continue your basketball career, obviously, recreation and travel tournaments like that. But you can also go and continue to have careers in sports, whether it's journalism, media, communications, arena management and stuff like that. But a little bit about Indian Sports first. If you don't know, we were founded in 2000, and the goal was to basically promote Native American athletes. And back in 2000, there weren't a lot of coverage of our Native American athletes that existed out there. So we came up with this online platform to get profiles, information out there, get stories out there about the athletes that were competing in college and professional sports back in 2000. I think it was in 2000 we started with like Kylan Supernaw, right? He was playing for the Detroit Lions. Nota Begay was playing on the PGA Professional Tour. I think he won 4 tournaments in 2000 as well. And just like nobody in the country even knew about that stuff. So we took it upon ourselves to create this platform to get that information out there. And that's how it started for us. John wasn't a journalism major. I wasn't a journalism major. We had no idea how to start a news website. We had no idea how to start to write stories on things athletes. But a lot of what they're talking about here earlier, Coach Kelly, is be in yourself and we all have dreams. We all have dreams. And it's like, no one's going to teach you. What's going to teach you is yourself. You're going to have to time. Coach Kelly, after practice, if you want to be a college division like that, you have to make more practice. You have to be more what the coach is asking. You need to go more time. It's the same with your career you're doing. You're going to have to put in the time to learn your trade, learn your craft, talk to people. Indian Sports, we built the platform over the last 21 years, but we started not knowing anybody. And so, like Coach Kelly is talking about, you have to put yourself out there and introduce yourself to people. There are people in Indian country out there that want to help you succeed. I'm going to be around all weekend. Coach Kelly is going to be all weekend. If you don't feel comfortable asking questions in public, come find us. We'll help you answer your questions on recruitment or careers or anything like that. And even Coach Deshaun, come and talk to us, because that's what I had to do. I knew nothing. And I went across Indian country and I talked to people. I just called them out of the blue and introduced myself. And they were, everyone in Indian country wants to see you succeed. And so they're going to help you figure out what you need to do if you succeed. So, but you have to put in that work. You have to speak for yourself. You have to learn to speak for yourself. Those are the same things that we all have to do on this stage. And I know it's tough to put yourself out there like that, but it's just going to help you grow your career a lot faster. But with Indian Sports, once we got it up and running and we started to see the trends with Native athletes and basketball, and what we started to see was there was really not a clear path to get to that success. I mean, we had a lot of Division I athletes back in the 2000s, but a lot of them were from who had parents that also played college ball, so they didn't really they really had a formula already of how to be successful because their parents were successful. But for a lot of Native kids, they don't have that type of influence in their lives. So, we took it on ourselves to say, well, let's try to create a platform where we can help show them the success that's out there from every reservation. And so what we've seen is the platform grow. We've added social media. I had no idea how to use social media when it started, and I still don't even know how to use like Snapchat or TikTok or anything like that. But we're still learning. We're still trying to figure things out. I mean, a lot of that stuff with social media, I have to ask kids who are like 20 years younger than me to show them how to do stuff. But with careers with Indian sports, like I said, our platform was set up to get all this information out. And so what I've had to do is teach myself how to be kind of a sports writer. And I go to these tournaments and games, professional basketball games, football games. I'm in the media workroom, and I'm trying to make connections with different writers, different media personalities, just to kind of understand what they do and what they've done, and also promote our Native American athletes. Quick story with that. It was back in, I think it was right before the pandemic. Actually, it was the day of the pandemic. I was covering the Big 12 tournament because Lindy Waters was still playing for Oklahoma State back then. And so the morning of, after everything started to shut down, the arena was quiet. It was just really empty, really eerie. And the Big 12 came out and said they were canceling the tournament. And so a lot of us media writers, photographers, and stuff like that, we were just kind of stunned, sitting there waiting for the game to start. And so everyone basically started kind of leave. And so I started packing my stuff up too. And then as soon as the media were leaving, I finally packed my stuff up. And as I was doing that, I seen Fran Fashila, and he was just chatting with somebody in the arena. He wasn't doing any interviews or things like that. So I took my opportunity. I didn't know him. I never met him. And I went over there and I introduced myself, and I told him about who I was. I told him about Indian sports, and I told him about Native athletes. And he proceeded to, for the next 30 minutes, ask about all you guys. Why isn't Indian country out there? I know there's Native athletes like Indies. I've heard those names before. And so, we had a good conversation for about 30 minutes, and he was really intrigued about what we were doing with Indigenous Hoops League, what we're doing with Indian sports, what we're doing with NSA prospects. And he said, here's my email, here's my phone number. Give me a list of kids that are all Division I athlete or Division I athlete prospects, and get me to them, and I can get that out to people. And boom, here we are. That's what I'm doing behind the scene. I'm working with, Coach Deshaun, with Coach Kelly, to help get your name out there. And so when you come to these tournaments, like he said, he's recording every game. And when I always see recording every game, he's also talking to coaches at the same time. Because they're going to say, who's number 44? Where's she from? What year is she? What's her GPA? And so I help them sometimes too and say, I already have that information because I follow you guys on social media. I'm following your careers. You don't even know that. I'm following a lot of your careers. You see me talking to you because I see where you've already done your homework, you put in your time, you're doing what coaches say. You've done everything that you need to do to get recruited, and you've got as high as you can go. Well, I'm coming in behind you and I'm pushing you up to the next level through Coach Kelly and Coach Sean. So, everything you're doing here today, I'm watching everybody. That's what I do. Just evaluate. If you're a good player, that's beside the point. That can be made. If you're not a good person, if you're not attentive, if you're not a hard worker, I see some of you girls just lollygagging up and down the court. Not even, you're not going to take the time to ever, why be here? Why even come and play? You're just going to jog up the court. You got some girls who are trying to, steal every ball, and that's what people want to see. If he wants to put his name out there with his innocent prospects, he's a bad recruit. He's not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So it's important that you guys also understand what he's talking about. Is you need to effort to be there and do these things because we are watching. I'm watching what we do. But going back to the career, with media, I've been able to run across other sports writers like David, also Nick Beckman from K4. He was Channel 5 at the time. He's a sportsman. Broadcaster. So there's many different things that we can do outside of basketball, football, soccer, boxing. And you know, that's just a little bit about some of the things you can do, a little bit about sports skills and stuff like that. And you know, the big thing that like you're here, like you're at state, we're all here. And we're speaking. So I don't have all the things. You see when I just come up to you don't even, you know, you can introduce yourself. But come up to me, I will answer your question. If I don't know the answer, I will find somebody who knows the answer. I will connect you with somebody who knows the answer. And, you know, whatever I can do to help, that's what EA Sports is here for. And I don't have anything else to say, so I'm going to turn it over to John now. But John Hart was the co-founder of EA Sports, and he's going to talk a little bit about what he wants to talk.
All right. Is that too loud? Okay. I don't really need a microphone if I'm going to talk my normal voice. My name's John Harjo. I'm an enrolled member of the Muskogee Creek Nation and a bunch of other tribes because I'm a boarding school mix from the East Coast and the West Coast. Creek, Seminole, Shoshone, and Paiute. I work for the Idaho Public School System. I'm a principal down there for the Alternative Educational Program. I'm also a coach. I've been a coach for a long time. I started coaching in Idaho in 2006. I currently coach track and cross country. I have quit coaching football. I've quit coaching basketball. I have one daughter left in the home. She is a senior this year. So if I were to coach something that she's not playing, it's going to take time away from her, and I'm going to lose her after this year to the college life, hopefully. Fingers crossed. The first place that a college coach comes to our high school when they want to talk about somebody is the counselor's office. It's not your coach. It's not your teacher. It's not your principal. It's the counselor's office. What's your name? I can't hear for anything. Come here. What's your name? Grayson Harjo? He's also a Harjo. Your maiden name's Harjo. So you just lift up a rock. We're like cockroaches. One of them just comes scurrying out from somewhere. What school do you go to? Okay. Varnum, Oklahoma. College coach comes to talk about Mr. Harjo here, and he never comes to see you. Doesn't talk to your coach, doesn't talk to your principal, talks to none of your teachers. For one reason, his grades are not very good. Now I don't know that for sure. I'm just using you as an example. If your grades are trash, that college coach is going to turn around and walk out the front door. He's got a 42-inch vertical. He shoots 70% from beyond the three-point line. And OU's coach comes in, UCLA's coach comes in, UCSC's coach comes in. Yes, we want to see his transcript. That's the first thing that they want to see. They already know all your other physical stuff, right? They've seen you play. You got YouTube and you have your own YouTube channel. You know you don't. That's what happens in Barnum. There's Wi-Fi is really slow. That's why he said he doesn't have one. But if you don't have good grades, if you don't make good grades, you're not going to go to school anywhere. Nobody's going to recruit you to play basketball, football, run track, or anything else. You can sit down, Mr. Harjo. Thank you. Give Mr. Harjo a hand, please. Red Lake, Minnesota, state champions year after year after year after year. Pine Ridge, South Dakota, state champions year after year after year. Basketball. Somebody asked me one time, I can't even remember where we went. We went someplace. Why do these kids why don't they go to college? He said it earlier. Why don't they go to college? Some of you older people, some of you people that are the same age as me, why don't these kids go to college? They're tremendous athletes. They're great. You guys know them. They're your aunts and uncles and cousins and everything else. I looked up the academic curriculum for Red Lake, Minnesota. When somebody graduated from Red Lake, Minnesota, they were 3 credits short to be eligible through the NCAA. You have to register with the NCAA when you become a freshman. You don't have to. You don't have to do it at all if you're not going to play. But if you register as a freshman, then that goes to your high school counselor. And you and your counselor can work together to say, okay, I only need 19 credits to graduate high school. You need more than that, I think. I don't know. I'm not a counselor. I said I'm the principal. I'm in charge. I have somebody else do that for me. But if you need 19 credits to graduate from high school, but you need 21 credits to be eligible for NCAA, that's part of the coach coming in and talking to your counselor. Okay, let me see his transcript. Great, he's got great grades, but he's going to graduate in 2 weeks. And there's no way that he can get those credits within those 2 weeks. Well, we had a nice run. I'll see you in junior college. Does everybody understand that? If you graduate high school from your high school and you are not prepared or academically ready for the NCAA, they cannot recruit you. They cannot give you a scholarship. You might go to school there on academic probation, but you're not going to play. I don't even know if they'll get to go on probation. Do you? You will have to go to a junior college. You will have to go to an NAIA school. Their rules are different. Does anybody know the 3 rules to play in NAIA as a freshman? You got to be in the top 50% of your class. You have to have a 2.0 or better. What was the third one? Yes, or 18 or higher on your ACT. But for the past 2 years, everybody's kind of waived the ACT, even the NCAA. But they're bringing it back. Okay, I'll let him tell you that. That was very confusing just for me. So I know he's going to confuse you when he gets up here and says it. You have to become best friends with your counselor. You have to become best friends with your high school counselor. You might not like them. They might not like you. But that is going to be your ticket and your trip to college. It's not going to be through your coaches. It's not going to be through your teachers or your principals or the cafeteria ladies who said they know somebody. It's going to be through your counseling office. That's where the sheet of paper is that says, I got a C in 9th grade English first semester. I got an A in 9th grade English second semester because I kind of figured out my teacher. You have to make sure that you take care of that. One thing when I got into high school athletics was that I did not realize no one is responsible for getting you recruited. Not your high school coach. Your high school coach is not paid to get you recruited. Your high school coach is not hired and fired on how many kids he gets or she gets recruited to go to college. The number one person who's supposed to get you recruited is your parents. That's your parents' job. And a lot of high school kids don't realize that. Jeff Bigger wrote an article on it, and it was probably 2001 when I first read it. So I called this guy, Jeff Bigger, and I asked him, what are you talking about? I read this whole thing like 10 times because I wanted to dissect every little bit of it because of the profession that I was going to get into. And he said, point blank, no one is responsible for getting you into college except for you and your parents. There is no high school. Who else is a high school coach in here? I know Coach Kelly, Coach Kamalti is over here. Who else? Is anybody? Nobody is. These guys don't get hired and fired from not getting you into college. That's your job, Mr. Harjo. Have you been doing your job? No. Be honest. I didn't do my job. I didn't know. I ended up going to a junior college before I went to a 4-year school. You are responsible. Your parents are responsible. Your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, and that's it. And you need to understand that because when it comes, I don't even know how to word this because I'm used to coaching football boys and saying a lot of inappropriate things. But there comes a time when it's just the end of the road and the only person you can count on is you. That's it. Because when you graduate high school, I don't see a lot of my kids once they walk out those doors. I don't see it for years. I'll go into the local Walmart. I'm like, hey, what's up, CJ? I haven't seen you in 5 years. Now, these are my 2 kids. I'm like, what? You are responsible for you. You have to be your biggest fan. Somebody else said that. One of these guys said that. You have to be your biggest supporter. You have to be the person that drives you. You have to be the person that makes you get out of bed, go to the weight room, study, get your grades in, and go to work every single day. If you guys have any questions on college recruiting, this guy right here, this guy right here, this guy right here, and this lady standing behind me who I've blocked the entire time, and myself will answer absolutely anything you have to say. My email address is johnharjo@gmail.com. It is not hard to remember. One word, no spaces, johnharjo@gmail.com. If you have a question, email me. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Well, if you missed that and you're on your phone, you missed some very good stuff. One thing John mentioned is that it's your parents' job. In Indian country, 1 out of every 3 Native American kids are raised by their grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, brother, or sister. And the reason behind just the talking is to be able to put somebody in front of, I don't know you all. I don't know if he's raised by his grandma. I don't know if she's raised by her auntie. But the important thing is that this panel and people here, we do care. We want to help. That's why I wanted to take the time out today. A rental of a facility that still costs everything, still running through right now. But I wanted to be able to take a moment to provide this opportunity for you guys to be in front of these amazing people. It's not every day that we get to be in front of 4 amazing people from Oklahoma who are doing amazing things for our people. So I'm very grateful and thankful. So any questions that you guys do have, ask them. You can inbox indiansports.com. Dr. Stephanie Bills, I imagine we can get you her email and connection. But at this point in time, we wanted to open the floor for any youth that may have any questions about any of the words that were spoken today. The floor is open to the youth. You need to come up and ask the question on the microphone, but now's your time. Anyone? All right. Well, at this time, I'm gonna sing one verse to my family song. This song was lost and recovered for over 100 years. My grandmother passed away 5 years ago, and left it up to me to bring back some of our family songs and traditionally carry that on for our family. So if I could have you stand at this time, I'm going to say a small prayer for all of our loved ones across the country on Turtle Island. Creator, I just ask that you keep a helping hand of love over all of our people throughout Turtle Island. You can help enrich our youth mentally, physically, and spiritually in the right way for a better future. We say a prayer for all the ones gathered here today and all of your loved ones. Keep a healthy hand upon them. I want to say a prayer for myself last and my mate, to keep a hand over us, and keep guiding us in the right direction, and getting the right words and mentorship to keep pushing. So the facility is open till 3. So if you guys want to shoot around, mingle, ask anybody any questions, the floor is open to come talk to them, take pictures, etc., etc. Thank you all for participating in the Resilience in Sports panel with these 4 amazing people. Thank you once again.